So recently, the Indian Vice President, Mr. M. Venkaiah Naidu, has visited the Qatar country and highlighted the India-Qatar ties. He has also called for building an enabling environment and boosted the collaborations for mutual benefits. So Qatar, it is an independent emirate which is located on the west coast of the Persian Gulf, occupying a small desert peninsula that extends northward from the larger Arabian Peninsula. It has been continuously and being sparsed, inhabited since prehistoric times. Following the rise of Islam, the region became subject to the Caliphate, with the capital of Doha, also known as Al-Dawaha, which was one of the center for pearling. So Arabic is the official language here, and most Qatari people, they speak the dialect of Gulf Arabic, which is also spoken by the neighboring nations. Islam is the official religion here, and they follow the Sunni Sharia laws. So Qatar is a constitutional monarch nation which is headed by Al Thani family, and their constitution provides for the hereditary rule by the emir's male branch of the Al Thani family, and Sharia law is the primary source of their legislation. So as mentioned here, its currency is Qatari Riyal. The Qatar's economic prosperity is derived from the extraction and export of petroleum, which was first produced in the year 1949, and the natural gas. It is also said that Qatar has one of the largest oil fields and one of the largest gas fields in the world. So this is where the Qatar is located, as you can see, in the Persian Gulf, and it is surrounded by the Bahrain, United Arab Emirates, and even Oman, Iran, as you can see here. So this is the exact location of Doha or the Qatar in the Persian Gulf nations, right? So Qatar, as I had mentioned, that its economic prosperity is based on the export of the petroleum products, which is why it joined the OPEC, which is the Organization of the Petrol Exporting Countries, in 1961 to control the price fluctuations of crude oil and to manage the supply of oil. So speaking of OPEC, which is the Organization of the Petrol Exporting Nations, it is a permanent intergovernmental organization which is created at the Baghdad Conference in 1960 by the founding members Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia and Venezuela. However, from January 2019, Qatar terminated its membership from OPEC due to some conflict in the policies of OPEC. So Qatar has always proved its stance in the Gulf nations and is also the founding member of the Gulf Cooperation Council in 1981, along with other founding members Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman, Saudi Arabia and UAE. So these nations have found a common interest in each other via their Islamic beliefs, their geographic proximity and even their special relations with each other. So even they share the same political systems based on the Islamic beliefs, which is why they have formed this organization. So as far as the India's relations with the GCC is concerned, so India shared friendly relations with the GCC nations. So GCC states are among India's key suppliers of energy, and annual remittances from Indians in these countries are worth an estimation of $4.8 billion US. So GCC has also welcomed the India's inclusion in the United Nations Security Council as a non-permanent member from January 2021. So GCC has always supported India in the international organizations. Apart from the participation of Saudi Arabia, Oman, Kuwait and others in the India's mega multilateral Milan exercise, India also has bilateral military exercise with most of these nations. So which means that of course India not only shares the common ground in terms of trade but also shares some common interest in the military levels as well. So next, talking about the key highlights of the Vice President's visit to the Qatar nation. So in this meeting, the Vice President has demarcated the start of India-Qatar Startup Bridge, which is to link the startup ecosystem of the two nations. As we all know that in this previous decade, India has strongly presented itself as a startup ecosystem and emerged as the third largest startup ecosystem globally and is currently home to over 100 unicorn companies. Apart from this, as we know that India has agreed to form some stringent acts to protect the environment and combat the climate change, which is why under the environment and climate change, our Vice President invited the Qataris Prime Minister to join the International Solar Alliance. So, International Solar Alliance is an intergovernmental treaty-based organization which was launched in the year 2015 by the Prime Minister of India and the President of France. So, this organization is basically to comply with the UNFCCC COP21, or per se it is the Paris Agreement, so that we can actually use the most exhaustible resource, that is solar energy, and replace it with the non-renewable resources, right? So our Vice President has also inaugurated the Joint Business Council between the business chambers of India and Qatar. And for this, a joint task force on investments has been enforced, which will further take on this task of the Joint Business Council. So apart from this, even both the nations have talked about their collaborations at the multilateral forums, such as the Inter-Parliamentary Union. So Inter-Parliamentary Union, it was formed by collaboratively by the France and the United Kingdom in 1889. So the main idea behind the Inter-Parliamentary Forum or Inter-Parliamentary Union was to promote the parliamentary dialogue and to promote the democratic governance across the world. So currently, speaking of this parliament, it is headquartered in Geneva, Switzerland, and 179 countries are member to this forum. And the slogan of this union is "For Democracy, for Everyone." So which is why the India and the Qatar nations, so these nations have tried to come up and collaborate for many such forums, not only the parliamentary forums but the Asian business forums as well, so that we promote trade, development and growth. So now let us understand this visit, or why this visit was so important for India and even for the Indian diaspora. So Gulf nations has been always like a golden ticket for us in terms of trade. So speaking of Saudi Arabia, as of the total volume of the US dollars 42.9 billion, the Saudi Arab stands as the India's fourth largest trading partner. And not only this, the UAE also, the Saudi Arabia also, the exports from to the Saudi Arabia are as high as $8.76 billion, and in the imports from Saudi Arabia were the fourth largest at 34.1 billion US dollars, which accounts to 7% of India's total imports. So next, talking about UAE, which is the country's third largest trading partner in 2021-22, and the second largest, of course, for both exports and the imports when these were counted individually. So, UAE accounted for 6.6% of the India's total exports and 7.3% of the imports in the last financial year. So next, talking about Iraq, which is the India's fifth largest trading partner in the year 2021-22 at the US dollars 34.3 billion. Next, talking about Qatar, which we were just talking about. So Qatar accounts for 41% of India's total natural gas imports, and of course the total trade with Qatar is approximately $15 billion, which accounts for 1.4% of India's total trade. Then next, Oman, of course, as on 2019, for Oman, India was the third largest importer and the third largest market for its non-oil exports as of 2019. Recently, India and Oman has also signed the program of cooperation in the fields of science and technology for the period of 2022-2025. Obviously, we all know that all these Gulf nations are known for their oil reserves and natural gas reserves, and since India is not or it is insufficient in the petrol production, or even in the crude oil production, which is why we are heavily dependent on these Gulf nations. So let us now undertake some of the key facts which are very important from the dependency point of view, as of that how much we are dependent on these Gulf nations. So if I talk about the India's total oil petroleum imports, so it accounts for 239 million tons and they were worth $77 billion. And it accounts for nearly 1/5 of country's total imports back in 2021. And if I just account for the share of Persian Gulf imports, it totals 60% in the last 15 years. So which just shown that the Persian Gulf or the Gulf countries are so important for us from the imports point of view. In 2021 to 22, the largest exporter of oil to India was Iraq, whose share has gone up from 9% to 22% in 2021. Of course, we know that Iran was earlier the important trading partner to India as far as the oil is concerned, but because of the US sanctions, the share of imports from Iran has dipped down and of Iraq has gone up. So apart from this, not only we are very happy with this Gulf nation as far as the trading and as far as the petroleum is concerned, even we found a huge Indian diaspora in the Gulf nations. So counting only 13.4 million non-resident Indians, the Gulf has the largest numbers. The UAE, the Saudi Arabia and Kuwait, they together account for over half of all the NRIs. And even in terms of remittances from abroad, India was the largest recipient in 2020, standing at 83.15 billion US dollars according to the World Bank data. So remittances are the amount, or these are the payments which are given, or remittances are ultimately the amount which is given by, or which is deposited by the NRIs living abroad. They are earning abroad, sent back to the country or sent back to the India. For example, if one of your relative or your brother or your father or any of your sister, she is working abroad and she sent you some money to the India, so that will be counted as a remittance, right? So as far as the remittance is concerned, India is treated as the largest recipient of remittances back in the year 2020 according to the World Bank data. So after India, the second rank is given to the Mexico. So Mexico is also the second largest recipient of the remittances in the world. So as far as the contribution in the remittances is concerned, so this Indian diaspora, uh, it actually covers, or it contributes majorly in the remittances role, right? So next, let's understand what are the recent developments or the news about the GCC or about the Qatar. So recently, the Gulf nations are actually are condemning the Indian government due to a derogatory statement passed by a BJP leader over the Prophet Muhammad, and due to which even the Qatar nation has strongly condemned and asked the Indian government to apologize on the behalf of that BJP leader. And this news is actually taking more of a political forum through the OIC, which is the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. So, Organization of Islamic Cooperation is the second largest intergovernmental organization after the United Nations, with the total number of members as 57. So, it was organized in 1969 in Morocco, and during the first Islamic Summit conference, and the prime motive of this organization was to give voice to the Muslims living across the world, to protect for their rights, to protect their interests in the in the world basically. So it is currently headquartered in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. So the news is that even the members of OIC are coming forward and they are not very happy. They are condemning the Indian government over such derogatory remarks. However, India is not the member of OIC because Indian government has kept itself away from such organizations which are based on any religion or whose prime motive is to promote a particular religion. However, in 2019, our Indian Prime Minister made its maiden appearance during the OIC Foreign Ministers meeting. So, at that time, the Indian delegate visited the Foreign Ministers meet in 2019 as a guest of honor. But purely India is not at all in favor of the ideology of OIC of promoting a particular religion, because India as a secular country, we take all the religions in the at the par, and we believe that all the religions should be treated equally. So definitely the current controversies going around such statements is not aligning with what Indian government project itself in the world, especially when we know that the Gulf nations are very important for us, as far as the trading is concerned, through the Indian diaspora, through the imports of petroleum and much more. So on a concluding note, definitely India has enjoyed a lot of cooperation from these Gulf nations. These Gulf nations have not only been Indian friendly but also India friendly, and they have almost shut down their their tariffs. They have even promoted the free trade agreements with India, and besides, as we know, that they have also come up with their military exercises with us. So India and the Gulf nations, they share a good strong bond from the trade as well as from the diaspora point of view. However, in the recent years, due to the anti-globalized policies, the polarization of religion, the fundamentalisms, and the growing intolerance among the nations has actually hurt the sentiments of the business across the world. Be it the US-China trade war, or even in India we have demonetization or the abrogation of Article 370. It has caused a lot of tensions, not only in the India's economic arena but in the business cycles as well, which reflected on our stock markets. So definitely India at this point of time, we can't afford for another challenge in our political or in our economic arena, in the political and economic environment, especially during the post COVID economic recovery. So which is why of course India and Gulf nations must keep up with its friendly relations during this hard times. So thank you so much for this episode. If you like it, please share it with your friends who are also preparing for any competitive exam, and hit the bell icon. Please subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much, everyone.